Reorganization Act came around in the 1930s, 1934 and 1935. There had been a couple generations of assimilation, of people who had been educated into the schools, who had gone and tried to adapt to the new way of doing things. The traditionalists, the traditional way of accepting leadership was, or selecting leaders, was, just by natural choice. You follow someone who you can trust, who you believe maintains the best interests of the entire group, who has the ability and the skills and the intellect to get you through whatever problems that, the group might encounter. The new way of selecting leadership was to vote. And in the traditional way of leadership, for example, the way the Kootenai chiefs used to do it, my grandfather was explaining to me that the way they used to do it was that the chief, if you look at any group of people in the schools or any group anywhere, there are subgroups that form, cliques that form. And each of those cliques, each of those subgroups will have leaders, will have somebody in there who the rest of that subgroup will feel like, yeah, this person can speak for us, or if this person says something about what's going on, we'll go along with it. So the way that they used to select the leaders in the past was somebody who the main chief, recognized that there were all of these subgroups among the large group. And he also recognized who was looked to as the leaders among those subgroups. And those were the individuals who he would choose to say, all right, you come to my teepee and we'll sit and we'll talk and we'll discuss the issues that are facing us as a large group. And the decision making was one of consensus building, where the chiefs recognized that if anyone disagrees, then it's going to, then they'll leave. They won't be a part of the group. And so to maintain the integrity of the large group, we have to come to some form of agreement that we can all live with on any of the issues. So after they used that type of decision making, with the Reorganization Act, the type of decision making that they wanted to impose on the people was to vote. And the majority rules. Well, there's always going to be dissenters. There's always going to be, so that form of decision making just didn't make sense to the traditionalists. And they didn't participate. So what ended up being the result of the Reorganization Act was that the traditionalists became disenfranchised. They had no voice, they had no representation. You vote for your leaders, and so the ones who were assimilated and adapted to voting voted in people who thought and behaved just like them. So we had an assimilated tribal council, and people on the tribal council who, for example, right now our tribal council, if any of the elders who speak the language fluently was to go in and to address the tribal council in the language, out of the 10 tribal council members, they wouldn't have any that could completely understand what they were saying. So the disenfranchised group, the traditionalists, to this day, the majority, or predominantly most of them, still don't vote. And so they're dependent upon our leaders recognizing the values and the worldview that needs to be preserved, that needs to be represented. And so it's a very precarious situation for the traditionalists. And they're completely dependent upon people who know neither the language or a majority don't practice the cultural ceremonies, dependent upon them to protect their interests. And so you can see what a precarious situation it is. Although to the tribal council's credit today, they are doing just that. They make sure that they have the input from elders, from the fluent speaking elders, from the traditionalists, on nearly every decision that they make. They don't have to, because that's not where any of their votes come from. So it's to their credit that they do that, but you can see what a situation it has become. You know, what a situation as far as not only selecting leadership, but also how issues facing the tribes, especially, you know, the issues that are facing today, what a dangerous situation the traditionalists are in. You're expecting somebody to understand who has been might be the 5th generation of a family that has sought to assimilate and has just recently recognized the value of the traditional viewpoint, but not really understanding, not thinking in a way of the way the old people thought of our position in all of creation and how we need to carry ourselves in the world today, and how we need to carry ourselves among all of creation, and how we need to think of ourselves in those positions. Not understanding that, but thinking of it in a way that the Western view and the Western education has taught you to believe, that man is on top of the hierarchy, and since you're a leader, you say you're the boss. You know, it's very, very difficult, a very, very difficult situation for everyone concerned. And so they're dependent upon those, and sometimes the tribal council will make decisions